Basically, art therapy is your way of being able to process and talk about any experience, whether it could be a range of different things, but it's just how you are able to process and feel comfortable processing what you need to process with your therapist. So it would be like in a room with a bunch of art supplies, and the therapist would sit with you. And while you're drawing your experience or expressing how you feel on paper with paints, they would talk to you and like kind of break through different layers of, yeah, whatever you needed to process. My own experience is the therapist never projects anything onto you. It's you are answering your thoughts, feelings, emotions, your traumas, if you need to get through something onto that piece of paper. And as you are drawing it, the therapist will ask you, so when you drew this, like, what were you feeling? Or when you drew this, why did you draw that? But it's never something that they're projecting. I'm sure everyone went through an edgy phase in their middle school, high school age. I was so emo.
I was there with you. I didn't even know emo was it. I didn't even know it was called emo.
I hung out at the mall in Hot Topic like constantly. And if you know where my hometown is, there's not many people like that. So I was kind of like a one of a kind person. And yeah, I connected with people, but finding that like one way where I can just do anything and not really care what anyone else thought was so attractive to me. And I honestly didn't even realize that when I was younger. I'm kind of realizing that maybe within the last few years. Yeah, wilderness therapy is essentially you join a program and we strip away all of life's distractions. So whether that's a phone, a computer, work life, any kind of drugs, alcohol, sexual abuse, family trauma, pretty much everything. You go into the wilderness with nothing you came in with. We change clothes. We change, you get like actual tools that maybe you've never seen before. And we teach you how to live outside in all sorts of climates all the time throughout the whole entire year. Basically like basic survival skills. We teach you how to put up a tarp. We teach you how to tie knots. We teach you how to make a fire with a rock and a bow. We teach you how to cook because some of these people have never experienced that before. And then like pretty much 2 to 3 times a week, the therapist will come out and you have one-on-one sessions. And the coolest part about that is that you're outside with nature processing what you need to process. And one thing that I saw my students go through is that they accepted that being outside in nature never rejects you. Whereas I think some people go to therapy and it's just like in a room, and therapy is amazing. I love therapy. I'm going therapy myself, even though there's no necessary reason to, but I just do it because it really helps me. But yeah, so you're outside processing and you can kind of take a step back from your life and just be in nature and have it kind of resonate with you, whatever you're going through. And like I said, have it accept you.
Do you think there's a level of preconceived notions? Like if even say it's like, you go to a traditional therapist. I know in our society, I think our generation is starting to erode away the stigma associated with it, which is absolutely great. But I feel like maybe past generations, 1 or 2 ago, it was more of like this, like, oh, something's wrong with you if you're going to a therapist. And so what it kind of signals to me is like, do you feel like whenever you're getting into the wilderness for therapy, it's kind of redefining what therapy is in a sense, as opposed to going into this room, laying on this couch, being talked at, and having all these books kind of around you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not to say that I think that type of therapy is extremely helpful. And I do understand that sometimes people can't take 3 months out of their life to go out into the wilderness. And the program I worked for specifically was, I think the youngest we had was 14, 15, and then any adult. It didn't really matter what age you were. But I think it's a little bit more intensive. Wilderness therapy is a little bit more intensive, and it's kind of like an all the time experience. Whereas when it's just once a week, it's just that hour. And then maybe a little bit of processing after the fact. But yeah, it's kind of like a continuous 3 month, like 2 to 3 month process.
Yeah, that's actually probably a great point as well, right? It's like, okay, you're going out into nothing. You're going out into nature, which that's so crazy that my mind even associates it with quote unquote nothing. It's like, well, you're just like, it's not nothing. It's just, it's just redefining, you know, what you're around almost. And so whenever people sign up, let's say for this nature therapy, are they still communicating with everybody that's in that group? And are they like in cabins? Like kind of what does the setup look like for the group as they go out into the nature?
So the program that I used to work for, we had 7 different groups. There would be youth, and then there would be kind of like more specific drug and alcohol, sexual abuse, and then adults, and then male adults, and then female adults. So it's kind of an array of different groups. And we would be able to we would cap it at like 12 people. And it also depends on how many staff you have. So when you sign up for wilderness therapy, or if it's a decision from your parents to bring you into wilderness therapy, we kind of welcome you in. We get you fully outfitted, like I said, with the tools, backpack, shoes, clothes, whatever it may be, food. And we drive out to wherever the location is. And you just kind of like, it's kind of a shock. I mean, even as a staff member, I was shocked. We show you first how to set up a tent, or not even a tent. It was just a tarp with some pea cord, and that's it. So pretty much like survival skills from the start, just so you know how to kind of take care of yourself. But obviously we're teaching people how to do that. Like I said, some of the students that I've worked with had never been camping, had never cooked for themselves, had never hiked, anything like that. So it's really important, in my mind, when I was working there, it was really important to kind of welcome them in. It's a big transition to go from like LA to just the middle of nowhere, Oregon, with a bunch of people you don't know. It's quite a big thing to go through. So yeah, you would just kind of teach them what you needed to at first, make them feel welcome, ask if they had any questions. You could definitely answer it if it was appropriate. And yeah, so you asked if there was cabins. No cabins. You're just under a tarp. We'd make a lot of A-frames were my favorite. But the kids kind of would get creative, kind of make like little forts if they wanted to, but you have to kind of keep in mind that if it rains, is your shelter going to be dry? Are your shoes going to be dry? Is your backpack going to be dry? When you're sleeping, is your sleeping pad or your sleeping bag going to be wet? Like, you have to kind of let them know all of it up front, so then they think about it and then they learn. And yes, a lot of mistakes are made at first, but that's why we have so many staff out there to kind of guide them through it.
It's pretty cool. And I assume you're not going to be able to take, I would assume, food for 3 months. Is there an element of hunting with this as well?
No. We would have, every day we have someone drop off whatever we would need. There's like a lot of communications that the staff have to do every day, multiple times a day. Because obviously, like, it's a big deal being a few miles out in nature with a group of people. So we would regularly have food brought to us.
Okay, that's a good thing to make sure you guys are well fed and hydrated.
Yeah, because we're moving a lot. We would hike every other day to new locations, and like the navigation part of it. If the students were really inclined, well, we would teach them how to use compasses and everything, but the main point for them being there was to just be there. So they don't have knowledge of time of day. They don't have knowledge of like where we not where we are, but maps are really only for the staff, so we can get to the next campsite or the next location, or like, oh, I remember that there's like a river a few miles this way if we want to go swimming at some point. So it's just for them to be there and kind of accept being there.
It's really, yeah, it's.
But the amount of success that I saw within my students, that was why I kept working there. Maybe the first week, a student hated my guts, threw pasta at me because they didn't want to be there. But then 2 months later, they're graduating and they come up to you and they're like, I didn't realize how badly I needed this experience, and you were a really big part of that. And that's why I did it for so long.
That's incredible. Just energizes you.
Yeah, I didn't really. Yeah, it was one of the most rewarding jobs I had ever been a part of.
I can tell. I can see it and hear it in your voice. It really stuck with you. Are there any similarities that you would see between the art therapy and then the nature therapy?
Yes, but kind of like I said, I didn't really do much art therapy. I only interned for like maybe a few months. That being said, I did bring art therapy, or some of my main practices that I would teach the kids. I do a lot of like mindfulness and then yoga and things like that, but then we would do art in the nature only with natural, like anything really out there, whether it's like making watercolor with flowers or making a dream catcher with sticks, or we do these like really cool therapeutic groups, and we would give them no tools, nothing. And whatever the topic is or whatever they would want to talk about, they would have to express through making it with natural objects within our area.
That's pretty cool.
So yes and no, I guess. Therapy is therapy. It's an incredible tool that we are so lucky and grateful to have. But yeah, I kind of just lost my touch a little bit with art therapy. Once I found wilderness therapy, I kind of just like,
it just resonated with you so much more.
Yeah. And honestly, I should have said this, but the main reason why I moved into a van was to work for a wilderness therapy company out west. And I was kind of searching for that. I was searching for that, and it was only supposed to be a 6-month trek. I was only supposed to be in the van for 6 months, and it turned into 4 years.
That's crazy.
That's It's quite interesting to be a guide to youth, per se, because you would see a lot of, or in my experience, like I would see a lot of myself in some of my students, and like, wow, yeah, I remember when I used to think like that, or I remember when I used to act like that. And you just kind of like take a step back and just recognize that, hey, like, this is who this person is, and you're here to help them, and you're only here to guide them. You're not here to tell them how to be, how to act, how to do this, how to that. Whereas I didn't really have that growing up, or I guess maybe to a certain extent I did, because my parents were showing me, that school was super important and education super important. And then you go to college and you get a degree and then you get a good job. And I just kind of knew that there was something else I needed to do before maybe I do that. So yeah, no, it was pretty cool experience, kind of like watching people and relating, because that's what a lot of my personal experience with wilderness was, being able to sit with someone level with them, see where they're at, and if it's beneficial to them, relate to them in a way. I am someone who needs to be like physical every single day. So whether it's a run or just going to the gym, or if I'm like on a job and, you know, shoots are from like 6 a.m. to like midnight, and then you got to like do all the things on the computer. You got to back everything up. You got to edit some. You have to have things done by the next morning. There's no time to work out. So whether it's like running down the hall in the hotels, or, you know, just like something like quick that I just need to like burst out, basically just move. It gets like my endorphins up. I sweat a little. It moves all the things inside.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird, but if I don't work out, or if I feel like I need to work out and I don't, like, that's when I start to kind of feel not as confident. And then also passion projects are a big confidence booster. I just did this passion project in New York with a large format camera, which is the one that I have is a 4x5. So the slides and the film's about maybe that big. And it's like the full on accordion camera. My uncle used to work for the New York Times, and before he passed away, he gave me that camera.
Very cool.
And I haven't had a like perfect time to use it. So I basically was visiting a friend in New York, and our shoot fell through that we were supposed to be on. I was like, well, hey, I have this camera. Like, what are we gonna just like sit around and do nothing? Like, no, I'm in the city. Like, I'm not a city girl, so I'm gonna like city it up. So I went to Washington Square Park and just took a moment to find people who were willing to talk to me, step into their reality, get to know them, and then take their picture however they wanted it to be taken, whether it was skateboarding or just sitting on a bench or like hanging out with a friend. And that having passion projects continuously kind of boosts my confidence for sure.